What are you using on your mix bus these days?
Well, again, my mix box is pretty static for probably the last 10 years, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Might have been a little different at that time, but most of my sound's already happening by the time it gets to the mix bus. So basically what I'm doing, a little bit of my trick is mixing the drums extra loud into the mix bus and then having all the limiting and the compression on the mix bus itself. I found that works a little bit better. So I'd say my 0 point mix bus is these days, again, it was different then, but I'll have the Q3, the Fab Filter Q3
Mm-hmm.
on the stereo channel. And all I'm doing with that generally is I'm just rounding off some bottom, slicing off some top, even for stuff that I'm missing that I might not hear if I don't have the sub on. And then also then I have just if things start get a little out of control for 3K or 10K, I can kind of use a little bit of the EQ in that too. But again, really simple. I'm not doing a whole bunch of dynamic EQ or anything fancy like that if I don't have to. And then I put it through the Eddie Kramer Waves Pi compressor,
Mm-hmm.
which I had Eddie Kramer at my studio recently at the Hideout.
Cool.
And it was awesome. I mean, here's a guy use his little profile model of his Pi compressor. I've been using that thing for 20 years, and now the guy's in my studio in my chair, recording. So it was really cool. But that's been my mainstay forever. And again, it kind of acts a little bit like the SSL center compressor, but the rack mount version is. Do you know G384 or something like that? It's a little, it kind of works a little bit like that, where it just does something cool to the bottom end, gives the drums a little bit more attack. Almost don't hear it. I'm barely touching it. Honestly, the needle's going, just like that on all the drum hits, barely even going, but just enough to kind of give everything a little bit of point to it and round off the bottom end. Soften the top up a little bit too. And then typically I'll put that, after that, I'll put it through an inflator,
Mm-hmm.
the Sonics, inflator, which that one I'll adjust song by song, so there is a little bit of distortion or not distortion, well, saturation coming from that. So if it's a really aggressive song, I can kind of, give a little bit more stank to it, a little bit more compression without being just true limiting. And occasionally after that, I'll have more of a true faceless limiter as well, something that's not giving it really character as much as just, knocking off some of the transients just so it's a little cleaner, and going to go through, make an Apple Digital Music in those days, or even now, an ADM file a little bit tamer, and you're not, getting all the sample cuts off and all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much the base thing. Occasionally I'll put in one of those Brainworks mid-side EQs, which I don't do a lot of fancy stuff with that for the mid-side stuff. Occasionally I will if there's hats on one side versus the other side or something like that, and it's knocking off my head and I don't want to change my mix. But most of the time I can change my mix to accommodate stuff. But I usually use that V3 for one of my EDM friends, showed that little trick to me of mono eyes in the bottom end.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll make mono from maybe, 100 hertz down or 125 hertz down. I'll turn that into mono signal if it's sounding right. Just kind of focuses the bottom end a little bit better. And again, give me just a little bit of an option if I need to tame some transients or some top end, stuff. And seems like there's a lot, but that's really pretty basic. A little EQ, a little general compression, and by general I mean like hardly anything. A little more limiting because again I'm mixing the drums extra hot, and that's it.
To watch the full video, click the link below and don't forget to subscribe.